Just over a year ago, I lived in a small town in Devon. I lived about a 15-minute walk to the nearest graveyard. This was where me and a lot of my friends used to hang out, as it's in the middle of all of our houses. It sounds a bit strange, but we didn't mind it as there's not much to do in a small farm town like this one. It was a Thursday night and we were all at the graveyard once again. As usual, this was normal. We talked all night, and then one of my friends, Mel, mentioned the art of ghost hunting. She told us a few stories about her experiences and we all laughed them off as if it was nothing, and that was that. A few days later, I was lying in bed, rather bored. My mind started to wander and I started to think about what Mel had said. I decided that even though I wasn't particularly superstitious, it would be something to do at least. So I decided to text my friends to see if any of them wanted to come too. It was around 2 a.m, so part of me didn't expect anyone to be awake. But regardless, I waited about half an hour for a response, and when I didn't get one, I decided to go alone. I put on a warm winter jacket, and as it was particularly cold, and some old walking trainers. I headed off to the graveyard, but it was different. I had been here almost every week, and yet the night felt kind of off. I walked around the graveyard for a bit and found my usual bench. I was trying to recall what Mel had told me about when she had done her ghost hunt. I remember her talk about her walking around the graveyard until she felt some kind of harsh energy. Then she'd stand there and try and get the spirit's attention. So, as instructed, I did just that. I made my way around the graveyard, slowly weaving in and out of the graves, trying to be respectful not to stand on anyone, still doubting anything would happen. Then, out of nowhere, I stopped in my tracks. I wanted to move, but for some reason I couldn't. I could feel my heart start to race, and my palms get sweaty even though it was cold out. Everything in my body was telling me to go back and just run away, but I couldn't. I kept staring forward, looking around to see if there was a reason for my sudden fear, but then suddenly, in front of me, from the darkness, I could only just make him out at first. A small boy. He must have been about 6 or 7, dressed in blue striped overalls and black shoes. He had messy black hair and his eyes were black. He looked at me and stared and tilted his head slightly to the right before running back into the darkness. It was only then I managed to muster up the courage to run back to my house. I didn't stop running until I was back home. It was then where I got a text from Mel. It read, "Sorry love, can't come out today, but have a great time. Oh, and remember to say goodbye to any of the spirits before you leave, or they will follow you." I could feel the sinking feeling in my stomach as I lay in bed that night. I couldn't sleep at all. The next morning, I had forgotten how scared I was the night before, and went on with my day like normal. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night again, in a panic, unable to move. I was shocked. I found, in the corner of my bedroom, the same little boy from the graveyard. This time I remembered I had to say goodbye to him, but every time I went to speak, I couldn't. There was no way I was going back to that graveyard, and I can't say goodbye to him now. I kept struggling, trying my hardest to move as if I was trapped, bound by something until I passed out. Exhaustion, I expect. When I next opened my eyes, it was morning. I was greeted by the warm sun rays bursting through the window. I slowly got used to seeing him after that. I'd see him around about once a week, and eventually was able to move around him. We never speak or talk to each other, he's just there. He hasn't harmed me yet, so I assumed he's nothing bad, but it's safe to say I'm very aware of entities now, and if I was to ever go ghost hunting again, I will always say goodbye.